Good morning, traders and investors. Steve Gans here. It is September 7th, 2025, and time to get into the weekend update. So the first thing I want to look at is SPX, and as I had previously drawn this line on here, SPX has stayed really true to that line so far. It did dip a little bit below it here earlier this week on the open, but by the close, it was back inside that line. So we are still in a pretty firm uptrending channel here. We can also notice that this is forming a wedge pattern. We're going to take a look at gold in a little minute, and we're going to see what wedge patterns can often result in. But anyhow, we are continuing higher here on SPX. Volume has largely been good on up days. We did have this closing day on Friday where volume was just a little bit higher on a down day. But while it was a down day, it wasn't necessarily a lower day. It was a down day because it opened at all new highs, sold off a little bit during the day. So I don't pay as much credence to that taller red bar for volume. Now we look at SPY. Of course, it's going to have virtually the same picture. I didn't draw the whole trend line on here, but of course, it's going to be virtually exactly the same as SPX. The ES, or the S&P futures, same thing pretty much. Again, the thing to note here is that we are working on this wedge pattern. So we look at volatility there. Volatility is back down to pretty much all-time lows. So there's no real fear in our markets at this time. Nobody's buying insurance on their portfolios. We take a look at the Qs. The Qs continue to be strong, but they aren't hitting new highs like the S&P is, at least not right at this moment. I suspect that's likely to change here in the next week or two. I'm largely neutral to bullish. Obviously, there's some big reports coming up. There's also a Fed decision coming up. All of that is going to play into this over the next week or two. But overall, I'm neutral to the bullish side on SPY, or the S&P 500. The Qs, same thing, volatility, almost back to all-time recent lows, so no fear happening there. We take a look at IWM. Now, here's what's interesting about IWM. It is popping to new recent highs. Our volume on those up days has been good, but let's just go back in time here a little bit. IWM hasn't come near past highs that were back here in early 2025. And then if we go back even further, we can see that we haven't broken new highs all the way back since 2021. So 2021 was the all-time highs for IWM. That said, it is creeping back there. It is showing more and more strength in recent weeks. So I am pretty bullish on IWM as well. Oh, I should say volatility on IWM also pretty much at all-time recent lows too. So no fear there either. Now let's take a look at GLD. Now you remember last week I pointed out this wedge pattern that was forming in GLD. And in fact, I even suggested a trade concept, trade idea that revolved around this and around the bullish nature of GLD. That trade, in this case, was buying a call spread, a bull call spread. That call spread is essentially at full profit right now of 255, or close to it. It's actually 240 out of a possible 255. So if this were a live trade of mine, I would certainly be closing it at this point. There's virtually nothing else to be gained. But as with everything, I recommend these as paper trades. Now, I did not actually have time to research one for this week. I'm traveling this week, but I'll try to come back with a suggested trade concept idea for next week. But obviously, this one from last week on the GLD worked out extremely well. So with that, I'm going to wrap up the weekend update here for September 7th, 2025. Thanks so much, everyone. Appreciate you stopping by.